Hello and welcome back. I hope you are able to understand the concepts being taught up till now. So, moving on from the previous session of practice on JavaScript expressions, this time we'll be seeing what is JavaScript attributes and styling associated with our React. So, up till now, honestly, you might have seen that the web page or the code that we are writing and ultimately whatever was being displayed on the right hand side pane of ours is pretty ugly, right? And one more thing that might be bugging some of you is that styles.css file in our folder is empty all the time. Then what's the point of having it, right? So in this particular session, let's go on and fill it out, add some styling, make our web page a little more pretty than what it used to be before. So in this particular session, we'll be seeing precisely that. So in order to add some beauty to our site, let's get started. Let me change displays first. All right, guys, I hope you're able to see the display now. So right now we have this similar project structure that we had in one of the previous sessions. This is an unordered list which says the names of 3 superheroes and 1 header tag. This is consisting of the text "my favorite superheroes." Now, as notified, up till now we see that we haven't applied any specific styling to our web page, right? So in this particular lecture, we'll be seeing that. So let's start by trying to change the text color of this particular heading. So we all know, as per standard practice, if we want to change the styling or we want to add some sort of styling to any particular HTML element, the preferred method is to add that styling externally rather than trying to use inline styling in that. All right. So what's the most favorable method is to create a class of that particular styling. And we all know, in order to make a class in CSS, we have to add this dot in front of the name, and we'll call the class dot heading. And for now, let's just change one particular property of this color here. And what we did is we created a heading class. How do we know it is a class? Because of this dot right here. And we mentioned that the color of this heading, whatever element will be implementing this, whatever element will be implementing this class will be having a color of blue. So getting back to the header tag, we'll write class equals to heading. Okay. Let's try to pop this out. And it's loading. So let us hit save here. Let's save this particular CSS also and try to hit refresh. Now we can see that the changes have taken place. And if you see right here, trying to head over to the inspect part and heading over to console, we can see that one warning is being shown to us. Okay, so it is saying that, okay, you have an invalid DOM property class. Did you mean class name? So it turns out that even though this appears to be an plain HTML element, but you know that we are writing it inside the render method. That means we are writing this inside a JavaScript file. And what is the notation that is used whenever we are trying to write some to add some property inside a JavaScript file? We have to write that particular property in camel casing. So if you head over to the MDN docs and if you try to find out how to add class into some element, you'll be able to see that the property that is of concern to us is called class name. All right, since we are actually working on a JavaScript file, even though it appears to be plain HTML, but as per our previous lectures, we already know that this particular thing that we are dealing with is JavaScript in our JSX file, which will be broken down into plain vanilla JavaScript. But in order to add some properties, the convention that is to be followed is the camel casing one. So the class name property of element interface gets and sets the value of the class attribute of the specified element, and this particular attribute is of concern to us. So let's make the relevant changes. Try to save this file, and if we hit refresh, you'll see that this particular warning is now gone. Okay, so which means we have to take care of this camel casing here. Now, one more thing, even though you can see if I try to hit inspect, there is no such warning or suggestion being given to me, but in some of the cases, and even as you perform this along with me, for some of you there might be some sort of warning here which will say that some sort of angle bracket and something is not recognizable or something. So the reason why that happens is, if you head over to this index.html and you see the line where we are mentioning our JavaScript, so you can see we are targeting this src index.js, which is located inside src folder, and the type we are saying is JavaScript. So even though it won't make a real difference in real life scenarios, but still there might be some hairy situations where you might get stuck. So it is better to change this from JavaScript to JSX. So if we mention that this particular file that we are taking our that we are referring to, this index.js, this is actually a JSX file and not a JavaScript file. So for some of you who might be facing with that angle bracket error, using this, that particular error will be dealt with. Let's see, this was just one property in which we were actually adding some classes from the CSS file to our HTML element. But if you head over here and if you try to look for some HTML global attributes, you might see that these are the list of them. Now, even though like the particular one that we just used, that is called class, which we changed to class name, the other attributes that we have with respect to HTML, they are mostly they consist of more than one word. Okay, so if you see right here, like this content editable, so what does this attribute stands for? It will specify whether the content that is inside that HTML tag of ours is editable or not. Okay, let's try to copy this, and if we paste it like this, and if we set this to true, okay, in quotations, and doing it like this, if we hit save, now you can see that the heading of ours will be able to edit it. Okay, so this content editable, this particular attribute stands for whether the text inside our HTML element is editable or not. If we set this to true, our content will be editable, and if we set this to false, it will turn back to like a regular HTML element. Now again, the important thing to notice here is, if I try to avoid this camel casing convention and just write it like this way, in which we used to do with plain HTML, these like in this list of global attributes, you'll see that it will lose all its properties. So always remember, this is a JavaScript file and we have to follow this camel casing convention. Okay. Next thing, even though we have some new limitations on some new set of rules, when we see that even though it appears to be plain HTML or CSS, there are some properties which are actually being changed because of this file being a JSX file or this code being a JavaScript one. Even though whatever initial rules, whatever initial knowledge we had about HTML and CSS, most of that knowledge will still hold no matter even if we are writing this inside the render function. For example, we know that apart from writing classes in the CSS file, we can also directly target any such HTML element. Let's take this UL for example. So if we directly write like a UL and let's say we try to change the color of our unordered list to green, if we hit save and if we try to incorporate it, no, we don't need to because we are directly targeting this. Let's just hit refresh like this, and now you can see that the unordered list of ours is now colored in green. So for this particular property, in order to add color to directly to one HTML element, we didn't have to change anything. Okay, so most of the knowledge that we already have with respect to HTML and CSS, it will still hold irrespective of this JavaScript factor that is newly introduced to us in this. Now let's remove this list from here, and what we intend to do here is, instead of this list, we will try to, okay, let's completely remove this UL. We'll try to add some images right here. Okay, and now we know that if we want to add some image, we have to specify the source of that image, and what we'll do is we'll just hit Google Images and we'll copy the image URL like this and we'll paste it like this. So if, let me head over to here. Okay, I think there's something wrong. Why is it not getting to the very end? Let me scroll it to the very end. Okay, I think the link is too large, but that shouldn't make a difference. So let us mention a closing tag here, and inside this we paste it like this. Okay, now we can see that this image is being displayed now. Now similarly, adding some other images like this. Now one important thing to mention here, guys, you can see that in plain HTML there are this, whenever we are using this image tag, we also see the cases where we have a closing tag mentioned separately. But since we don't have any child or like children for this image tag of ours, you can just directly mention this slash here and it will signify the closing of this particular image tag. Okay, so in the list of our superheroes, number 1 was Batman, which is done. Let's search for the next one, which is Daredevil. Okay, let's copy the image address of this image, paste it like this, and again creating another image tag. The last one was called, okay, I misspelled Wolverine. Anyways, we still got what we wanted, and we paste it like this. If I hit save, go to the separate one. Okay, so now you can see what change we made in our web page. Instead of having this displayed as an unordered list, we added 3 separate pictures of those 3 list items. But right now you can see that they appear to be a little bit like out of, let's say they are not consistent enough, right? So what I want you guys to do is, now you know how to add any sort of class or any attribute from CSS, basically whatever styling you want, how to add it to our HTML element. I want you to apply some code for these images in order to turn them into square of same sizes that will be 200 by 200 pixels. So we want these images to transform into 200 by 200 pixels. Okay, so pause this video and give it a try yourself. All right guys, we know that in order to do it, we have to create another class in styles.css, and always remember that if you have some multi-word classes here, or whatever word you are using, it is more than one. So the convention that we use in the case of CSS file is called kebab case convention. In the case of this class name, it was called camel casing because every subsequent word is capitalized. But in kebab casing, every subsequent word is separated by a hyphen, so it appears to be sort of like a kebab. Okay, so that's why. Anyways, in order to change the dimensions of our image, let's specify the height to be 200 pixels and the width to be 200 pixels as well. Getting back to index.js now. Okay, that's why I hate adding src directly like this. Let me scroll down like this. Okay, now in order to write on multiple lines in Code Sandbox, what we can do is we can hit Alt and then click like this. So you can see it will create multiple cursors, and whatever you will write, it will write in all the places. And in order to exit this mode, you just have to press escape. So putting one cursor here, okay, that will be a little hard work, just bear with me. Scrolling down, you can see it's such a long one, right? Okay, there it is. Hitting Alt and again clicking here, and one more we have to find. So this pane is being given to us by the prettier extension that we have, okay, the code formatter. So in order to add that, what we'll do is we'll write class name in camel casing, and the class name that we had is called hero-img. Escape, hit save. If you get here and we hit refresh, you'll be able to see, although the pictures doesn't appear that perfect to us right now, but now we can see that all the 3 list elements are now consistent. So that's how you can change the dimensions of the pictures to 200 by 200 pixels. Okay, now the next thing that we can see is this particular website. Okay guys, let me just remove these elements, right? They're occupying a lot of space. You can see even like scrolling, it is taking like forever. Let me just comment out or just remove these three. Okay, now there's this website called Lorem Picsum. So what it does is it will give you a link like this, and like pixum.photos and slash, and this particular, these two parameters right here will represent the dimension of any random picture that you want from the internet. Like in this case, the dimension of the picture will be 200 by 300 pixels. And if you just add one attribute right here, like in this case, the dimension of the picture will be 200 by 200 pixels. So let's try copying this link and storing it inside a constant like this. If we paste it like this, and if we try to create another image element in which the src will be something, and we close the image tag. Now remember guys, this particular URL is stored inside a constant, and inside a Java, these curly braces will represent that we are going to write JavaScript code inside that, and you know how to put this img here as a reference like this. So now you can see like this way it will give us random pictures of like landscapes or something which are 200 by 200 pixels in size. So if you try refreshing them, you'll see that we'll get new picture every time. So if you want to substitute or use any picture as a template or something in your code, check out this website. It is pretty convenient. Okay, now another thing you can see right here is, let's say this property right here. So it says that if you want to get a blur in your image, you can just append $blur to the end of the URL. Okay, so let's try doing it. Now we know right here we have used this image as a reference here, and because it is a string, what we want is we want to append this $blur to the end of the URL. So how do we do that? We'll simply concatenate it like this, blur, and now you can see the images that we'll have will be blurred a bit. So basically we won't be able to see what actually they are. So you get the picture. And even further, you can adjust the amount of blur by providing a number like equals to 2 or 10, where I think 1 will be the least like opaque one and 10 will be the most blurred picture. So like this, we'll be able to use these pictures via this online link, some random pictures of this by this pixels. Now let's okay, let me try not to save this time. One more thing is left for you. Let's add only 2 images this time. Okay, and let's hope that the image URL that we get is not that long. Okay, so let me reopen this and let's try the Wikipedia one. Paste it like this. Oh, it is still that long. Yeah, let's try some other one. Let's say this one. Okay, anyways, what I wanted to demonstrate is, if you see right here, you must be wondering why this yellow line keep coming even though when we substituted the src for our images. So if you hover over it, you can see that it says image elements must have an alt prop either with meaningful text or something. So what this suggestion is basically trying to tell us is that it is a standard procedure to provide an alternate text whenever you are using an image element in your project. And why it is recommended to do it? Because people who have issue with their vision and who are using screen readers in order to access your websites, if you provide an alternate text for your website, they'll be able to understand what the particular picture is about. Okay, so in order to make our website more people friendly, let's try to add an alt property like this, and inside this we have to write a text that will signify what this picture is about. So let's write random right here, and this was, let's say, Batman, even though there is no picture right there, and this was Wolverine. Let's assume that we have two pictures here. So once you add the alternate text, you will see that the sort of warning that we were getting, if we did not write this, it will disappear once you write the alternate text for the image. Okay, so in this session we learned to use JavaScript properties as attributes in our JSX file. Now remember that all the attributes from HTML, whatever we knew up till now, like src, href, etc., they all can be used in JSX. But always remember about the convention, the procedure that we have to use, the convention we have to follow when writing the writing code inside CSS and when writing code inside this JavaScript. So in the completed version of the Sandbox, I'll be leaving this src link for this Picsum one. But regarding these three list elements that we had, three superheroes, I will keep this src empty because it will turn into a gigantic file and you'll have to keep scrolling in order to just switch between two image tags. And don't worry, if you want to play around with it, if you want to use it, you can just head over to Google Images and copy image URL from there and paste it inside this this src tag right here. So in this particular session, we saw how to add styling in this web page of ours. Let me change displays. Alright guys, I hope you are able to understand what was taught in this particular session. Remember, there were relatively the new concepts that we saw in this particular session was relatively larger in number as compared to the previous ones. So feel free to go through this video once, twice, whatever number of times you feel comfortable in understanding whatever new things that we saw in this. Especially like in most of the cases, we saw what are the standard practices and the standard conventions that we will be using and we should use ideally whenever coding our website or whenever creating this React app of ours. So make sure you understand all the knowledge and all the concepts taught in the series of videos that we had completed up till now, and then only we'll move further, because throughout this playlist what the intention of ours is to build complex topics on top of some simple topics like level 1, level 2, level 3. So if anywhere in between this chain gets broken, like if you perfectly understood what level 1 is and there's a little bit of a crack in level 2, so level 3 will be unstable, like it won't hold that longer and it won't be as clear as it should be. And once things start getting blurry, then you will start missing out the fun which this framework is. So I'll recommend you to go again through this video if you missed any single concept in that. And apart from that, I hope you're having fun. Do let me know whatever suggestions you have for me in the comments below. And for this particular session, that will be all from my end, and I'll see you in the next one.